Small Town Inertia, J. A. Mortram, Jim Mortram. I've had this book since it was published in July 2017. It is 192 pages. It's that old school, lovely horizontal format of 12 inches by 8. The reason I haven't looked at it within camera is that I knew it was about to be exhibited at the Side Gallery on the 12th of January 2019. And as today is the 11th of January 2019, I thought it was rather apt that I put the book down on my rostrum and went through it with you. The exhibition runs from the Side Gallery from tomorrow, the 12th of January, to the 24th of March. It's in Newcastle. Side Gallery, Newcastle, down near the quayside, underneath the Tyne Bridge almost. Look at a couple of camera videos, you'll see a few months ago I did something on the Great North exhibition. Most amazing gallery. It means a lot to me in my heart and as a photographer in my history and my youth. Now, I didn't want to talk about Small Town Inertia, this book, until the exhibition was running, because I wanted to help create a little bit more exposure for Jim. Not that he needs it, because this book it's finding its way through, and it's finding its way to a lot of people now. And I think people are beginning to wake up to what Jim's done here. It is now the 11th of January, and tomorrow, the 12th of January, it opens at the Side until the 24th of March. For me, this book's really interesting because I see sort of where he's coming from with it technically, where his inspiration was, where his not the subject matter, but the technical side, the black and whiteness of it, the format of it. I see where it's come from, and it all comes from somewhere, like music, like art, like in photography. It all leads somewhere else, and in 20, 30 years, there's going to be somebody taking this and taking it and evolving it to another form, and that's what it's about. And I see this is a more refined progression of something like survival programs from the 70s, not just in the size of the book, which is 12 by 8.5. It's that old, beautiful, old school sort of horizontal format, which I absolutely adore, and really feels like when you've got a picture, it's like a 10-8, from the darkroom. But I see where it's an extension of something like the survival programs, and it's wonderful. So I think it's 192, 3 pages long. It's got the dust cover. It's got beautiful grey, which I've not actually seen before because I've never taken a dust cover off. And it's a bit about Jim there, and it's got that nice dust cover. It's signed. It's a sort of Blue Coat Press emblem on the left. So what I'm going to do, most of the pictures are looking from the right, so I'm going to concentrate on a few of them. So I'm just going to lower it down. There we go. And that'll be right. So those of you who don't know what this is about, Jim Mortram lives in Dereham in Norfolk. He is a full-time carer for his mum. Jim spent most of his life as a carer, and I think he's been mentally, physically consumed with the process of caring for somebody else, but also caring for himself and trying to make sense of everything around him. And picking up a camera for Jim was, I think, the release for all the research which he indirectly had taken on in the years previous. And just like everything else, Jim has used the camera to express his view on the world. And what's unique about this book is two things. One, it's about the perceptions. One, it's about the perspectives of other people's lives in his community. But secondly, it's from somebody who's not a working photographer. It's somebody who hasn't put that element of commercial, who hasn't put the sort of commercial side of his life to the fore and hasn't tried to make a living as a photographer to be able to do a book. Jim sort of lived the life of a person who he's almost portraying in a sense. You know, he's lived on the sort of margins of society. He's lived in that environment where he maybe, if he hadn't have discovered this, if he hadn't worked out a way to release everything which he'd been witnessing, he may have just ended up as one of these individuals in this book. And I think what's interesting even more is that somebody else somewhere down the line is going to pick up on this book and be in exactly the same situation as Jim. And that is what this book's about. I'm going to let you see a few things and we'll talk about, and I'll continue that in a second. Okay, so I've got a dust jacket. It's signed A War of Poverty. So a little about, that's Paul Mason, 2017, and Lewis Bush. I think this is sort of extracts from the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, and it's looking into sort of Lewis Bush's sort of discussion on conservative England and the way Jim has dealt with the subject matter. We write the privatised map of deprivation. I guess this is talking about, it's almost a poem, I think, in looking at sort of poverty and austerity and the political discourse, I guess, within the United Kingdom, and it's a fitting sort of tribute to sort of what's going on next. And knowing Jim, that this will mean a lot to him, that Paul, Lewis and Jamie have been involved in that, because he would select these type of people, knowing that it was a mega contribution to the introduction to this. Because what I quite like about this is that Jim hasn't really introduced it, and I feel that is really quite an important sort of episode on it, because I think what I quite like about this is that Jim hasn't sort of come in with a fleeting statement or a statement. He's left it to other individuals, and he's leaving now the story to the people. Now, what's important in Jim's work is the dialogue, which is the narrative which follows and works with the pictures. So if you look at his multimedia online, you'll see that there's a lot of interviews, there's a lot of videos, there's a lot of discussion of letting, in fact, it's not discussion, it's letting his subject talk about what they want to say and why they want to be in front of the camera, and what stage they can set for themselves in their discussion. And I find it's quite interesting, you know, because people don't often get a voice and are not often heard. And I think when you're in these situations, convincing people and to get them to understand how they can make a voice, because it takes a lot of trust, you know. You can't just sort of turn up to David and say, David, look, I want to photograph you, I want to spend a few weeks with you, and I want to photograph your plight. In your head, you're thinking, well, I get it, but how does David perceive that, you know? And there has to be a lot of trust, there has to be an understanding, because, you know, David feels probably that he's secluded, lonely, he's been cast aside, nobody's going to listen to him. And I think when you get the media in, a lot of the times they sort of, there's a sort of stigma with people being ridiculed in a way, made to feel marginalised, made to feel like they are secluded but even now and then they're not offering them any hope or resolve to their situation. But I think what this book's doing is letting them speak unedited, let them speak in a way further than the book. This book is nothing compared to the bigger picture. This book is just a vehicle for some of the pictures. The online presence is the next part of it, and the exhibition is the next part of it, and all the publicity Jim gets for the book is the next part of it. This book is so small in the context of it, I feel. Let's have a look at some of the pictures. This is David. I've only been blind under the current government, and I feel like the current regime really has not helped my situation by the way they talk about disabled people and their policies. This stuff is not pretending to be anything. It's shot as it is. This is Tilney 1. It's shot as it is, isn't it? It's shot with the light what's there. It's shot with no other pretentious aspects to it. And, you know, Jim makes it feel so easy. It feels like he's just popped round for a cup of tea. Maybe he has. Maybe that was part of the relationship he has. And boom, he gets the shot with Gabby and Lynn. But at the same time, it's something which evolves. And it's something which, you know, he might have spent 3 days there. You know, who knows? It's a great shot. Nice perspective, depth of field. I like the sort of, if you take this down, you know, it's that sort of imprisonment, isn't it? It's quite, I see where he's coming from and that, and with behind the washing basket, and it's quite a beautiful perspective. And this is Carl, and I've seen on Facebook some of the relationship Jim has with Carl and the way they talk, and it's like they're sort of almost best mates, and surely they probably are now, you know, and because Carl and Jim have got a high level of trust with each other. Size quite been a big focus for Jim, and he's obviously the front of the cover of this, and he's the front poster for the side exhibition and stuff like that. And people do not have to let you be in their circle, but you know, it's not about the people letting you in, it's you wanting to stay there, because this can be really alien to you. This can feel uncomfortable to you. There might be things like smells, there might be things which you're not accustomed to in your daily routine, which make you just want to leave. But Jim hasn't done that, you know, he's continued to do stuff. This is Lewis, whether or not he's been uncomfortable, and I'm sure there's times where he's shot this, where he's felt really uncomfortable, and because it's alien to him, because it's not in his sort of safe bubble, and he's eventually accustomed to that and took the purpose of what he's doing to sort of level out in that and become accustomed. You can't be, as a human being, be used to everybody's circumstance. You can't agree with everybody. But I think these pictures have let, it doesn't matter whether Jim has agreed with anybody, he's let, say, Simon evolve on the camera. He's let him be himself, and without any sort of bias whatsoever. And the only bias in the sense of these pictures is where these people are and what the government and what the position they found themselves to, say, government cuts and government procedures and government policies and stuff. And it's like, you know, we're all in this together, you know. It doesn't matter where you are. Durham in this book is a sort of microcosm for the rest of the UK. This is Simon. Finley again. Sort of interesting metaphor for a prison position. Now I'm going to jump. I've got a couple of favourites and I'll try and find them. I'm not going to show you too much of this because I think you need to go out and get this. You can get it from Blue Coat, you can get it on Amazon. Jim's very contactable, you know. If you're sitting there and you want to do something like this and you're sitting in the community, this is what this book's about. Imagine if a person in every town now got inspired and started doing this. What a force that might be. You know, what a force that people started documenting themselves and documenting the lives around them, started being influenced by this and started putting this stuff out there. What a voice that would be, you know, what a statement of the people talking, a powerful statement. Because you can't sort of sweep this aside. This is like real, you know, this is stuff you can put on the internet. This has got mileage. This is one of my favourites. This is David. Now, he's blind. It says here, when my father died, people would have a go at me. They used to have a go at me before he died. When I was about 8, because he was working on the land, and in those days, on the land, and looked as bad as working on the chain gang. People never had much respect for me because my father worked on the land. Then when my father died, they had less respect for me. Now being blind, I feel the same absence of respect from people. I've gone back to know how it was when I was a boy. Only worse, as I can't see anything. Full circle, only worse, back where I started, like I'm an outlaw. Oh God, it's horrific. No words really. And a sort of beautiful black box effect with the shot to enhance that. And you know, again, it's that relevance of trust, how Jim got there and what he did and the mileage and what he covered and how he's helped and gone on to help David. And I hope this does something, you know. I hope this goes somewhere, because this for me is not the most important book. I think the next book's is the most important book, because I think the vehicle is just being put into first gear. And I think Jim has got to take this somewhere now. He's taken it to a level where everybody's gone, wow, okay. He's done it with such like respect. His technical and his photographic awareness is second to none. He knows how to take a picture. This is David and Eugene. But where technically, and what is the next message and the continuation through different people, I think there's more to come with this. I think there's a higher level of knocking on the doors of people who can change things is about to come. I think the more this is done in a broader and a continuation, I think is going to have a more powerful message. I think maybe we look back in 10 years and see this as part of a bigger thing which is going to happen. And I'd like to think that it can be an inspiration to a lot of people, of young photographers, sort of students, people who are living in this situation. And it's hard because people have got the internet, so I guess they can see, and not everybody can afford to buy a £25 book. And I'm sure Jim give a lot of these out in box loads to people. But I think having something like the exhibition and having the media presence and what the internet's given Jim with this, I hope it can inspire somebody like Tilney, you know, to get out there. And this is like, I love this shot. It's one of my favourites. It's that just getting up shot, isn't it? It's that ghost. It's like a sort of ghost of himself. It's aspiration. It's just wonderful. This is another great shot, Stuart. Love is the eternal where we are not so in the physical. This almost feels like 1970, doesn't it? It's beautiful. Some dialogue, some self-harming with Kirsty. Sky and Lee. Look at how bare everything is. I want to find a shot. Oh, I just love this shot so much. Look at that. It's amazing how neat everything is, and David can't see anything. And I don't know how fully blind he is. I can't remember, but another shot. 1955 or something. It's amazing. 1960s. Live it, love it. And that's Shawnee. There's two shots I want to look at. And before we've seen a cover, which is the most fantastic cover. There's a couple of shots there's three shots I want to look at before we go. One of them's this one. And this is a sort of sign of somebody who knows what they're doing, And it's the little things in the shots which go a long way to defining how good a photographer is. And for me, just this, it doesn't matter whether it was an accident or it found its way into the final edit. It's the flare of the sun, but it's the sort of detail on the fact that David's blind, and it sort of sums the diamond another level up with the photography, and I love that. And it's done quite wide, it sticks quite long, and the shadows, and it's a simple shot but done very, very well, and a very complicated shot at the same time. The other shot, I don't know if I can find it. This is the second shot I want to show you. For me, I love it. It's very much like a Paul Trevor or a Peter Marlowe influence. It's got that sort of greyness. It's just, I love it. Absolutely love it. Caught in Time. It could have been anything on there, but I just love that communication. This is Simon. There are some people out there that are really stupid with all they say about epileptics. I've had people put dog mess on my windows, banging on my windows and walls at night. I had my blinds down and I just took no notice. I think people that do that sort of thing are really stupid, trying to frighten people to get them nervous and them getting worried so they have another fit. Cruel as people are. But I love this shot. And the last one is a shot of Jack. I just love stuff like this. I love the way the backlight, that also could be steam off the suit, but I think it's probably a sort of reflection of some of the light. I love this. I just love that it's all a bit stripped bare, it's secluded. It's I don't really know who I am anymore. I've wasted my life away, and the feeling that rock bottom will come very soon. I've wasted my life for so many years, and now my body is beginning to fail me. I'm a shadow of my former self. And I think, Jim is obviously, and maybe, I presume, looking for wordings to sort of help influence his pictures. And that's good, and that's what it's about. And you can see it, you can see it with the secluded shots. People who've got nothing are stripped bare in their flats. There's nothing, we're not showing off worldly goods, we're not showing off. It's about emphasising that marginalisation, that seclusion, that lack of nothing, the lack of everything maybe, and just being part of the system, the haves and the have-nots. And I think, like I've said, I think this is the beginning of something more. I really do. I think this has just begun, and it has really, because it's just the first book, and it's inspired me. It's inspired me to go out and look at it and find something from it and start testing myself a little bit on areas which I hopefully will do at some point in 2019. And I think, hats off, Jim. I do hope this is the beginning of something, but I tell you what, this is the beginning of your side gallery adventure, and I'm sure there's going to be many people looking at that from all over the world in the next 3 months. And I hope this is just the beginning. Obviously, I hope it's the end, but there's always going to be somebody who's worse off than we are. And if we can help them in whatever form, if it's by telling their story or by just being a mate. And I think this book's brought home that message that we're all in this together, and it's time that we started looking at a way of doing something about it. And I think this is the first stage of other things. So if you see anybody who needs help, go and talk to them, go and find out, because I certainly am. I'm certainly doing. Go and find out, see if you can use your skills, like Jim's done, to help them, or be their friend.